All right, what's up, people? It's Brianna Basile from the Affluent and Black podcast. Today we have a special guest, Calvin Russell. He's going to talk about everything real estate and real estate investing. Like, this man just knows everything, right? He's the CEO of Park Place Realty and the 850 Club. So, Calvin, what's up?
How are you?
Good.
All right.
Living it up.
Awesome.
So tell the audience who you are, what you do.
Sure.
And, kind of like your upbringing, how you got started with everything, the 850 Club, Park Place Realty. You have a lot under your belt.
A little bit. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's not a problem at all. Well, first off, I want to say thank you for inviting me. I know I'm not the only person you know in this industry, so I greatly appreciate the invite. So my name is Calvin Russell. I am the co-owner of Park Place Realty. My wife is, of course, my other half. So she, keeps everything in line, with Park Place Realty. And it's a brokerage that we started back in 2020. I've had my real estate license since the end of 2017. So I like to say 2018. So it sounds better. But either way, got my real estate license then. But well prior to that, I'll go back into when I started at the dealership. I worked at a dealership for 6 years, and that was really my introduction to credit. I was an advocate, not necessarily about credit, but really just an advocate, just trying to help people. The problem was at the dealership was that a lot of people would come into the dealership, and about 70% of people that go into dealerships actually don't get approved. And it's a staggering number, I know.
Interesting,
yeah. And so typically what people do, they go to the dealership and, hoping for the best, crossing their fingers. I've even seen some parents drop off their kids like it's a playground. So, yeah. And typically they start the process and everything. And they would go through the process, and essentially, if they didn't qualify, they would kick them out. And and I said, well, why do we work so hard to get these people into the dealership? And they get here, and then we don't have a strategy for them. And they said, well, Calvin, no one is going to put together a strategy for these people. They'll just go to another dealership. Some buy and some don't buy. And I said, okay, all right. Well, it seems like a kind of a sketchy, well, I don't say sketchy, but it seems like a kind of a scary way to make a living. Yeah. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start telling people what they need to know to go into buying a car. Mind you, a lot of people don't know this, but when I first was working at the dealership, probably the first 6 months, I didn't have a car. So here I am telling people why they need a car, and here I am not having a car. My wife and I, technically we had a car, but she had to drive back and forth to NIU. Yeah. So here I am getting dropped off at the bus telling people how they should get a car. So things quickly changed, but either way, and I want to set the story up like this because I want people to appreciate where this is all going to go once I get to it. And essentially, we set that up. Bankers would come in every single week, and they would essentially say, hey, send us more business. And I said, well, we send you guys business, but you guys decline people. And you don't say why. You just say the credit score or whatever. And sometimes it was more than that. And I actually sat down with one of the representatives at one particular bank, and he told me, he says, well, this is what we're looking for at our bank. And I said, well, I sent you my friend that I went to college with. You declined him. You didn't say why. Now he's going to obviously go somewhere else. I don't get paid. You don't get paid. And it's this vicious circle. And so I said, okay, what we're going to start doing, I'll start printing out people's when I give them like their credit report. We didn't have to give it to them, but if they requested it, we could give it to them. I would always give people their credit report, and I would flip it over, and then I would write on the back of it what they needed to do in order to qualify for a car. Now, the difference is obviously with a car, you need a car. Usually people, they need a car right away, typically.
Yeah.
Saying that to say, a lot of people just didn't have the patience to wait and say, okay, I'll do what Calvin says. But some did. Some listened, some didn't. I went from selling 8 cars a month to about 20 cars a month, and did that for about 4 years straight. I was always in the top 3, top 5 in sales. Not because of sales mostly, but just because the word got around that I like to help people. Then it got to a point where I said, okay, people started calling me that didn't want to buy a car, but they was like, hey, I heard that you help such and such, with their credit. Can I get like a game plan or a strategy? And so I said, here, how about I do this? I'll start putting in just quick videos. At the time, there was a platform, you guys may have heard of it, called Periscope.
Oh, yeah.
So I would put the videos on Periscope, and then so people, of course, everyone procrastinates. So only a handful of people would be able to watch it. So as they watched it, a lot of people missed it. So then I said, okay, there's got to be another platform I can put this stuff on. And I'm like, oh my God, YouTube. So I then start putting stuff on YouTube. And then I get this phone call like a month later from this random guy like in Detroit, Michigan. And he says, hey, man, I saw your video. I want to know, could I pay you to help me? I said, sure, we're going to work this out. So sure enough, so that started. So that's kind of how 850 Club started. It originally started as a mentoring program. I used to go into high schools giving finance education, basic credit, as I'm learning in the car business. And I'm like, man, people need to know this stuff. Like, I don't know, like, especially like in the Black households, that conversation isn't had a lot. When we're talking credit, most parents say, don't get a credit card. And it's not because they didn't want us to have one. It's because they didn't know how to use one properly. Home ownership. A lot of the baby boomers didn't have a lot of people don't know this. A lot of baby boomers didn't have, they really didn't own a lot of homes. It was their parents. So like our grandparents, right?
Yeah.
And so but then that's a twofold problem. The grandparents didn't tell their kids how they need to go into home ownership. Then number two, the baby boomers, they felt like, oh, well, when mom passes away or when dad passes away, I'll keep this property. Well, the problem is that, historically, sometimes we don't, as a community, don't know how to handle money, long term. So then we take out second mortgages and all that. I'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give people these tips and I wanted to put it on YouTube. Started doing that. And slowly, it went from getting like a call from that one guy. I started getting one call a week. A call a day, 10 calls a day, 20 calls a day. I couldn't even do my full-time job. Now, I loved working at the dealership. It was the most success I've ever had at a job. It was my first time making over six figures. So things started to change. The address changed. A lot of things started to like slowly change. So I really appreciated it. But I said to myself, okay, where is this going? And it got to a point where I was making about half of what I was making with helping people with credit and such. So it was like, I was like, okay, so what if I'm missing out on something? And there's one guy, I still talk to him every now and then. There's one guy had mentioned that I was working with. He says, Calvin, listen, you only live once. This will always be here. You should at least go out, try it. And if it doesn't work, they will always take you back. Yeah. And he says, honestly, and this, mind you, this guy, he invested in Tesla early on. So just kind of give you like an idea, but hold on. He says, Calvin, this is one of the most, I would say, empowering things I've ever heard. He says, Calvin, if you were a stock, I would invest in you. And so mind you, this is like a 60-year-old white guy, so I'm thinking like somebody's grandpa, right? Yeah. And I'm thinking like, man, that means a lot because of his age, and I know he knows what he's talking about. But I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can, not see if I can do it, but try to structure this. That's when my wife came in, right? She says, okay, you got this. Let's go and put some structure behind this. Okay. So we did that. And sure enough, then it got to a certain point where people said, hey, Calvin, you've helped me get the credit card. You've helped me get the car. And then it got to a point where I'm helping people like nationally. Right. And people were saying, hey, Calvin, you know what? I want to get a house. I would then start to refer them to other real estate agents. And, so how it is when you refer people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. Crazy. It didn't work out. Like people was like, hey, I didn't get a call from this person or this person didn't. The energy wasn't the same. I've always been high energy. I've once heard that there's a different, when you walk inside the room, you're either brightening the room or you're dimming the room. Yeah. And I've always wanted to be the person that brightens the room. So I told them, I said, okay, here. I was thinking like, man, what if I'm leaving money on the table, right? So I said, okay, I'll get my license. There started to be a growing list of people waiting for me to get my license, like for real. And here's the crazy part, right? I got a little arrogant. My wife and I bought our first house in 2013. So this is like this is about 2016 when all this is kind of happening. So I'm thinking like, okay, if I'm taking the real estate exam, this is going to be a breeze. I ain't got to study for this. I failed that bad boy 4 times. And so once you fail 4 times, you have to repay to take the test. Yeah. Either way, did that. And I literally had about 9 people like waiting for me to pass the test. I sent out this text to everybody. I said, hey, I got my license. They said, perfect, let's go. And so I took off. And my motto was, I make home ownership easy. And so that was how, Park Place didn't exist at that time because in the state of Illinois, you have to be working with a brokerage for 2 years before you can create your own, which makes sense. Some states have a different rule, but you have to have enough experience. Unfortunately, they only have time as the qualifier. So you can have your license for 2 years, not write any business, and then start a brokerage, which a lot of people don't know that. That's why it's a lot of uneducated people. Real estate is the course is mainly law. It's not strategy. It's not education in a sense. It's not market type stuff. So anyway, got that completed. And everything just took off. I think I sold 11 homes my first year. The next year it went to 18. The next year it went to 36. And then because at that point, that was the first year I hit top producer. You have to sell 32 homes. At first, I'm thinking like 32 homes. That's a lot of homes. Yeah. But I haven't failed less than 30 some homes since that time. On average, I average about 70 homes a year, just personally. And now it's at the point where I give deals to the team. And so they can, help with the flow, and they see how I do things, and they say, okay, let's keep this going. So that's essentially how everything started. Then I don't know how, it's so crazy. Black Enterprise picked it up. And I think it was another magazine had picked up a story from something that my wife did. And then they said, we had no idea you guys own a real estate brokerage. And we don't want people to do business with us because it's a black owned brokerage. Cause I feel like that's being kind of loose right now. Everything's like, oh, black this, black that.
Yeah.
Do business with us because we care about you. Do business with us because we have a 5-star Google rating. Do business with us because we're going to help you. We're going to make this easy. That's why I want you to do business with us. So, but either way, that's essentially how that got started. So, and here we are. So, of course, I left Nissan back in, I forgot, I didn't want to name drop. But either way, I left the dealership. I was
going to ask too.
Oh, yeah. So, I left them in 2017 and went out on my own. And but it wasn't always pretty, so because I've had businesses before, but I never really successfully had a business where 100% of our income came from this one source. And so the credit piece that took off, real estate that took off, and one of our best months in 850 Club, we did over 50K in 1 month. And then in Park Place Realty, I mean that's always up. That's kind of crazy. I think the best month we ever did there was like 60K, and I think in 2020 everybody was up, right?
Yeah.
I think you could have been selling used toothpicks. You would have found somebody in 2020. But that's the thing, is that it's really a matter of making sure that people know an easy way to accomplish their goal. We're goal oriented, and that's always been our approach. Because credit, let's be honest, credit is one of those industries where it's a gray area industry, and I didn't want to be the credit company that helps you buy a home. I got into way less doors. But when we became the real estate company that can help you with your credit if needed, the doors opened up. And so New Life Church invited me out to do a presentation. Pastor Hannah, shout out to him, because he most definitely was blazed a trail. So many people that were huge along this journey, and just putting me in front of people, and outside of YouTube and things of that sort. And everything just kind of just took off. So sorry, I know that was a lot. So yeah, but here we are.
I'm like, damn. That's impressive. And the biggest takeaway was your mindset.
Yeah.
You said, okay, here's how you can improve your credit to get, approved for a car.
Yeah.
Most car salesmen are like, okay, you didn't get approved, I'm not making no commission, whatever.
Yeah, have a nice day.
Yeah, have a nice day.
Yeah.
They don't give a damn.
We used to do little things. Unfortunately, I was part of the group, because you are who you hang around. You are the people that you hang around with the most. And if we're at, like working at the job, and you're around people that's like negative, you may not even notice it, but you're slowly becoming that negative person. And so we would do things like a football, like a kicker does. And so essentially, if a person had bad credit and we kicked them out, after they left out the door, we used to have like this fake imaginary football like this, with like a punt, okay, I guess they got kicked out. So just these little things, but at the same time, they didn't realize that it was really hurting their business, because they would talk to, 5-10 people a day, and then just be happy about that one person. I was thinking that, guys, we should be thinking long term. If 10 people come in, I want everybody's business. And then you would get some people, and even in real estate, people do this. They say, I don't want this client because their pre-approval is only this high. And I'm like, well, you know what's crazy is that I have there's a young lady that's a client of mine, and her pre-approval was like maybe under 115. Usually agents, they kind of run away from situations like that, or if they're lazy, they don't see the future. And she ended up getting promoted at a job in which she then not only told me about other people, but she told me about her sorority. And then that led to other people. And then another thing too that people don't understand, and that's why I always kind of break it down to like the simplest form. No one, most people are not with the first times. Let me explain what that means. Your first car. Are you driving the first car you got? You still drive that car? Mm-mm. The first job you've ever worked, you still work there?
Nope.
The first relationship you ever had, you still with that person?
Oh, no.
Right. You've moved on, right?
No.
He said, no, don't take me that back that far, Gal. But my point is, the first house, people are going to upgrade at some point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what that first house is. I know we're $115,000 on a house. People, they upgrade, right?
Yeah.
And then even if they never upgrade, people know people. You have no idea who people know. So why wouldn't you want to give stellar customer service? And then they're going to remember. See, they may not remember all the facts, right? Our parents didn't give us bedtime facts. They gave us bedtime stories. And so people remember the emotion. They remember how you made them feel. And they said, man, you know what? I want to be in conversations. And I think the craziest conversation that I was a part of was this one guy worked at I think Coca-Cola or Pepsi, and he was making a delivery to someone at one of his delivery places. Mind you, I don't know who this guy is. Then the guy that he sees, this is a route he comes through I think a couple times a week, and he sees this same guy. So the truck driver sees the guy that works at the store. I don't know who the guy at the store is either. They get into a mini conversation saying, hey, I want to go into home ownership. And then the guy at the store says, man, let me share with you this information about this guy that I watch. He sends him my video link, one of the videos, I don't know. And then the guy that's the truck driver calls me and says, man, I don't know you. I barely know the guy that gave me your information, but I know can you help me go into home ownership? And so I'm saying that to say I want to be in conversations even if I don't know those people. So, but that's always been a goal of mine. Yeah. I don't know if I answered any of your questions at that point.
No, that's incredible. We were just talking about like the mindset.
Yeah.
Like your mindset is crazy. And I actually thought about that before. Like, why don't places such as car dealerships, right?
Yeah.
Help people who are not approved, like getting a position to be approved. But then when you start thinking about the world and capitalism, those companies make money off people having bad credit.
They do, and that part. See,
crazy.
And when you think about it, that's how banks make money.
Yeah.
They can't make money if everyone has good credit.
Yeah.
They can't, because that's where the low interest rates are, especially like with cars. Because that's a short term situation. But the sweet spot, the sweetest spot is the people that don't know where they are. They walk into the dealership, they're like, oh, I got this. And then regardless of how the salesman makes money or whatever the case is, they don't know what their options are and they don't ask questions. So there's a difference between people who just simply ask research. There's no excuse for us to be in 2023 winging it, so because we have access to Google. My mom, she bought Encyclopedia Britannica. So we would have to read certain things. So it's like, I'm not a super huge, like research or anything like that. But my point is that if you want to know something, you can look up that information, but you cannot rely on or hoping that the person, the car salesman, the real estate agent is going to have your best interest, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's just not the way the world works.
Yeah.
But the people who do have your best interests at heart, long term, they win.
That's
do win. Why you win it. Right?
Man, I'm trying. For sure.
And just like banks love revolvers as far as credit cards. They don't like people as much who pay off their balance in full. No. They want you to charge their interest rate.
That's how they make money. And it's okay. That's the system. You know, and if that's the thing is that in America, right? I love where I live. When you start going to other countries and stuff like that, they don't have the same infrastructure. You go to Jamaica, you want to buy a house, you got to put down over 70% in some areas, over 50% in some areas. Yes. Jesus. It's cheaper to build a house than it is to finance one in Jamaica. But now, even like in China or a lot of these places, they're just starting to get a close infrastructure, like is still miles away from the American credit system. In America, it's not many places you can go to, but in America, you got an idea. You say, you know what? I don't have the money, but I have an idea. Let me pay these things on time so I can build up a score so I can get the money. You cannot do that in other countries, so, and not because of capitalism. And so I think that people don't know. That's a whole nother, I have to come back for that one.
Yeah,
So,
for real.
but that's the short end of it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 850 Club.
Yeah.
You told me a little bit about this before we, turned everything going.
Yeah.
You said you built the software and the algorithm.
Yeah. So
and you spent a lot of money on it.
we did. Yeah. We, my wife and I, we spent close to $100K on this software. And and for those who are watching, I never want to come off bragging or boasting. I want to come off as a guy that's going to give you an idea. I want to set an expectation.
Yeah.
If you're looking to build something out, it's going to cost money.
Yeah.
So so a lot of people aren't trying to do all that, right? But the only reason why I did that is because it didn't exist. Most people right now, when they want to know something about credit, they either ask their friends and family. They, look up things on YouTube, kind of hope for the best because you don't know. Because now it's all about followers. If a person has more followers or subscribers versus a person who has a certification or some type of degree, they're going to listen to the person who has the followers because they've been socially accepted. However, sometimes a lot of that information is based on the 3 people they've helped. I've seen over 10,000 credit reports. I've seen every scenario you can possibly imagine. This ain't changing that much, anytime soon. Although California is working on some changes, that's another episode. But when 850 Club first started, my biggest thing was being hands-on. So I'll take you back a bit. So when we first started the company, I used to do consultations, and I would be on the phone with people for an hour. And at the time, I was charging people like maybe $50. Something like, because it was never the money for me. I got more out of the person having the success. I got more out of the person accomplishing their goal. So I would literally, and I had a follow up. So if you paid a certain amount, I would follow up with you 3 times. So I would follow up with you month 1, month 2, month 3. And by that time, you should kind of be where you needed to be. Then it got to a point where the company grew so fast, I couldn't keep up. And it was only so much time in a day that you could fit people in. And it got to a point where we were pushing. I couldn't follow up with everyone in 30 days. So then I had to start, getting the staff going, start training the staff. We still couldn't keep up. So then I said, okay, we had to start kind of scaling back. Okay, we can't follow up. We can't talk to them every single month. When I would just email them and kind of go from there. So we did that. That was part 1. The biggest thing was I wanted to keep up with the times. Credit is one of those, credit obviously falls into that financial industry. And when you talk about finance, which is one of those topics that a lot of people, I won't necessarily say are not just as comfortable talking with, they don't know who to talk to about these things. So I wanted to make sure that they didn't lose that personal touch in a sense, but at the same time, just keeping up with times. We're used to going to DoorDash without talking to anybody. Going to Uber without talking to anybody. Yeah. Everything is now like right here in the palm of our hands. It used to be from, hey, I need to talk to someone. Now it's like, I don't know if I want to talk to anybody. Now we text, we chat, we do this, everything. And so I said, okay, let's go ahead and go this route. However, there's a lot of platforms that's out there, but this is the only platform in the world that literally you could upload your credit report. It reads the credit report. It tells you exactly what you need to do to improve your credit score. It's goal based. So if you say, hey, my goal is to buy a house, it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to, as far as credit goes, to get your report in place to qualify for a home. And we're working on a couple of other things too that, it's going to be crazy. So, but I'm excited for what the future is going to hold. And, but that's essentially what that is, and it's the only software that's out there that's doing that. And don't want to come off bragging or boasting, but more so because I'm solving a problem. And the problem is that people don't want to talk to everybody about this type of situation. People don't want to overpay. That's another problem in the credit industry.
Oh, yeah.
People are charging $1,500, $1,000. There are some people, I'm sure, some people are like, why would you even pay someone? Let me tell you something. Only in the Black community do people pay hundreds, thousands for credit, right? Versus a lot of other people say, I'll just educate myself, or I'll learn, or I'll kind of ask my friends, whatever the case may be. And it's not that we're making a bad decision. My point is that at what point are you going to start creating new habits, right? Because that's really what it is. It's once you get the information, it's like, okay, now how can I start doing this? Or really, I wanted to make sure that everything stayed affordable and people can still get results. So I don't want to spend too much time necessarily on the software because I'm not trying to, do a shameless plug. But at the end of the day, it's something that is goal based, and it's not just for people that want to go into a home. If you want to buy a car, if you want to lower your car payment, if things that credit allows you to do, a higher limit credit card, it puts you in position because for the most part, a lot of people are just winging it. They're guessing, and since I've seen so many credit reports on the bad side and good side, it's like, hey, this is what you need to do. So.
That's powerful. And and where can people find this software?
Yeah, so it's 850club.com/start. So 850club.com/start. So yeah. Okay. And then you get there and you can actually create an account for free. There's a couple free tips in the free version, but the paid version is when you're able to upload your credit report. It gives you a customized game plan. And then you're able to dispute items as well too. I forgot to mention that. So of course you can select what items you want to dispute on the inside the software and check it's even better than that. You can actually track. So once you click dispute, it actually sends a letter off certified. So you can track everything inside the software. You don't have to leave anywhere. It is only going to get better. Now that also comes with, I have a home buying course that's super dope. That it comes with that business credit course. It's already in there. So it's nothing additional. How to buy a car, how to lease a car. It's in there. So it's amazing. And this is just the beginning.
Dope. I can tell. I mean, I can just see just different ways it can just grow. Yeah. Like for example, teaching people like money management skills. You help them build their credit so you get those 20, 30,000 on Maxes or Chases, but they just blow it. Right. Because of that mindset isn't together. Correct. It's terrible. So I can see you growing in all type of ways.
Thank you. And that's the thing is that people they're not understanding is that they think that they're getting around the system. But the system is always going to be 5, 10, 20 steps ahead of us because now they're just going to change the score requirements.
Of course,
because if everyone all of a sudden has a 700 credit score, 750 credit score, but the person has not changed, that means the habits will be the same. And then it's like, well, man, we approved this person at 700, but they're acting like they're a 500 mentally because they're doing whatever those habits typically are. And then eventually they'll say, you know what? We need to change the lending requirements. So a lot of times we're creating the problem that we say we don't like. And people are trying to put their credit report in a microwave, put it on there for 30 seconds and then take it out before it beeps. And that's what everyone's doing. It's like, okay, how fast we're becoming impatient. And the problem is that creates another problem. Because now, if that's what you did to get to where you are, how can you teach your kids that? Now you got to hope this guy's alive to help your kids. Because you didn't learn the knowledge to pass it down. So it goes down a lot of levels. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So that's dope. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So let's get into some real estate questions.
Let's do it.
So home buying. I would love more people to own more homes and or even just rental properties like real estate. Yeah. Because right now, when the economy is terrible, I tell people, like stock options and things like that, you can trade that up or down regardless of the economy and make money. I trade stock options.
You sound like it.
Yeah.
So, that's what's up.
And real estate is another good thing to get into.
That's right.
To have those assets. So let's say I'm looking to buy a home.
Yeah.
I'm coming to you like, what are the first steps that I should take to get approved?
Yeah. So I always tell people the first thing you want to do, because it's the easiest things to change, is going to be taking a look at your score, right? Because even if your score is not there, you can work, even if it's not, going through my software, there's over 800 videos that I have for free on YouTube. I didn't even mention the YouTube page just because I don't want people to feel like, okay, he's just talking about what he has in place, but more so people know that there's a lot of free ways that are out there to help you improve your credit score. But either way, saying that to say that's the easiest thing to change. So first thing you want to do is make sure you see where your score is. Now, let's talk about that for a second. A lot of people say things like, well, Credit Karma is not accurate. Well, let me go ahead and correct that.
I hear that a lot, yeah.
Credit Karma is 100% accurate. You will not hear anyone in the credit industry say that. Here's why. Credit Karma is a different algorithm. Okay, so credit is an algorithm. You have two main algorithms. Algorithm number one is what over 90% of lenders use. It's called FICO, F-I-C-O. And that is an abbreviation. I don't even know if I said that right, abbreviation, but that's Fair Isaac Incorporation. So long story short, two guys came together, said, hey, we should start putting a score on people. This is in the 1950s. And then, well, I'm sorry, 1970s. But then they didn't finalize it until like the early 1980s. And they said, hey, this is what we should be doing. Before credit scores came out, it was all about referrals. It was all about references. So if you knew the local doctor and he vouched for you, then it's like, oh, this person's good. They got the money. Now it's like, hey, well, I still know that doctor down the street. Fam, we need to see your credit score. So, so you need to check your credit score first. You don't have to have a lot. You know what's crazy? It's easier to buy a house. And I hate to say this because I feel like I sound like a real estate agent, but this is true though. And especially, and again, it should be this simple, but I'm gonna tell people it's easier to buy a house than it is to get a credit card. It's easier to buy a house than it is to buy a car. Let me break that down. So when you're buying a car, you have no idea what the rates are going to be, right? When you're buying a home, you can Google mortgage rates. They're right there. Everyone gets the market rate, okay? And so they started that in the 1970s. And really, the Civil Rights Act of 1968 actually became the Fair Housing Act. A lot of people don't know that. So because that was really what Martin Luther King was advocating for at the time, was fair housing and amongst other things. And then they said, okay, housing sounds more acceptable. Let's go and just call that, essentially the Fair Housing Act. So that's when it said, okay, then not long after that, that's when they really start pushing FHA loans. And that's when the Federal Housing Authority, I believe I said that right. So, but essentially, you only need a 580 credit score, okay? But let's go back to Credit Karma real quick. So Credit Karma, the reason why I say Credit Karma is accurate is simply because it's two algorithms. Number one, 90% of lenders use FICO. I mentioned that. And then the other algorithm that 10% or less of lenders use is called Vantage Score, VANTAGE score. And so Vantage Score is the Burger King of the credit industry, right? And then, of course, FICO is the McDonald's of the industry. No matter your choice, they're both burgers, right? But one, let's be honest, is more popular than the other. So because Credit Karma, people look at the software. Credit Karma is nothing but software. But the algorithm that is providing the scores, the algorithm that's providing the report comes from Vantage Score. I'm going to make this go a little bit crazier. So when people say things like, well, I don't look at Credit Karma. I have Capital One. Capital One, that lets me know what my score is. Yeah. Capital One uses Vantage Score.
They do. Yeah.
Wallet Hub uses Vantage Score. Identity IQ uses Vantage Score. There's nothing wrong with Vantage Score. Oh my God. Credit Sesame. If you go to transunion.com right now or Equifax.com right now and you get a membership with them directly, those are Vantage scores. Those are not even FICO scores. Exactly.
Really?
It's cheaper. It's cheaper. It's cheaper for them to provide those scores. See, FICO is like Apple. Where essentially it's like, hey, this is us. No one can get in. Don't you touch anything. This is us. We're not changing anything unless we have to. Vantage Score is more like a Google. Wow. It's like, hey, we just want to help people. Here's a score. You don't have a score. Now you got a score. That's how Vantage Score is. Wow. But because of that, people say, oh, well, it's not accurate. What's not? Show me a Credit Karma credit report. Then show me a FICO credit report. It's the same report. You know why? Because neither one of these companies make reports. They're algorithms. That is an equation. The report comes from the bureaus. The bureau is Equifax, TransUnion, and of course Experian. Their job is to make sure that the accounts are on the reports. That's it. Yeah. And then they send those reports to the algorithm, Vantage Score, FICO, and they analyze that and they say, okay, this is the score. And then when people look, so here's what it is. It's not that people don't like Credit Karma. It's just that's what they have access to as consumers because it's free. So since it's free, they have access to it. And then what they'll do, they'll go to the dealership and then they'll get their credit ran because I'm going to tell you about how many scores we have in a second. They'll get their credit ran and then they'll say, oh, well, your score is different. Man, I knew Credit Karma wasn't accurate. No, that's because they use FICO.
I heard that about it.
You know what I mean? So, but let's talk about that. So the thing is that when people have to understand a couple things. One, and I'll ask you, and I'm not expecting you to know this particular answer simply because we're not taught these things. Yeah. How many credit scores does a person have?
A lot.
Okay.
Like I have the Experian app and it shows 1 million FICO 8s, FICO 11. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, right.
It's a lot.
Right. So check this out. Because you have that, before you had that platform, did you even know you had that many scores?
No.
Exactly. And usually people think they just have 3 scores, one from each bureau.
Yeah, same.
You have 28 credit. You have 28 credit scores.
28.
Here's why. And it's the most beautiful thing in America. Here's why. They created these categories. There's 7 categories. Okay. I'm sorry. There's 9 categories of 3 scores. That comes out to 27. Okay. But that additional score is one that they the newest score that they have out. They've come out with the FICO 9. They come out with the FICO 10. The 10 is coming out. Here, it means nothing if no one's going to use it. Okay, because see, here's the difference. You have to say, "Hey bank, this is FICO. Hey bank, this is our new scoring algorithm. Our new scoring algorithm." The bank has to now test this algorithm out, which means they have to look at the new scoring platform, give some loans out there. You can't determine what the future is going to hold if a person only has a loan for 3 months, 12 months. We got to see some longevity. So because of that, and things keep changing, the people keep their buying habits change. So it's just easier to keep things the same way. The same scores that mortgage companies have been using, they've been using the same, and the auto industry as well too. On average, they've been using the same algorithms for the past 10 to 12 years. So no matter what new stuff comes out, saying that to say, when you try to go get a credit card, you have no idea. You can have a 750 score. You can have your income there. If you have the Chase, what do you call it? The Chase inquiry rule. You got so much stuff. These are because they're not regulated. There's some things that they are regulated on, but you can't tell Chase Bank on what they need to do to what requirements or regulations they're going to have in place to approve someone for a credit card. You can't tell them. I mean, technically you could, but that's doing too much. So they do make sure that when you're looking for a house, that's regulated, which means that it's going to be the same for everybody. Right. And so that's why I say it's easier to get a credit card. I'm sorry, easier to get a house than it would be to get a credit card. It's easier to get a house than it would be to get a car because you don't know what the rates are for a car unless you go to your bank. But if you go to your bank, now you only got one interest option. But I'll come back another day and we'll talk about, how that whole process goes. But that's essentially how that process works is that, with Credit Karma, I tell people all the time, look to see where your scores are, and you want to be at least a 580. Okay. Now it's 2 ways to see your mortgage scores. There's only 2 ways to see your mortgage scores. Way number 1 is to go to a lender. And of course, that's going to be a hard pull, but they can see your mortgage scores. Okay. The second way is to go to myfico.com because that's the actual source that everything pulls from. Okay. And myfico.com is actually better than Experian.com. And the reason being is because, see, it's nothing wrong with Experian. Experian is just bias. Experian is like, hey, we'll show you all of our Experian scores. We'll show you only your top, your overall Equifax and your overall TransUnion score. But we're not going to show you all the rest of those scores. Right. So now you're paying, about $30 a month. So we're in that range. But see, for $30 a month on FICO.com, you don't get monthly credit reports. And you have to pay $40 a month for that. Sidebar, FICO should really pay me to be talking about them. But anyway,
for real.
But either way, you go to FICO.com, myFICO.com. You create the account. You get the advanced plan. That's the cheapest one to get. It's $30. You don't have to keep it or anything like that. Once you get that, it's going to show you your 3 mortgage scores. Okay, because remember, there's 9 categories, and one category is mortgages. Okay, and you drop the highest score. You drop the lowest score, and whatever score is left is your middle mortgage score. That's the number that they're going to use when you are when you're starting the pre-approval process. So a lot of people think, well, I can't see that score unless I go to a lender. No. See, that's what makes us different than a lot of other real estate brokers. See, it's not that they don't have the information. They'd rather not look at that. Most real estate agents you talk to, they'll say, hey, Brianna, you want to buy a house? Yeah, girl, I want to buy a house. Okay, great. Here's my lender's number. And let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
Not where I'm at. So how we set it up is we confirm the score first. We know you can buy first before we send you to the lender. We're not trying to see what you can get approved for. We know you can get approved. We want to see what the amount is going to be for. And so that's why we are, I won't say more successful, but that's how we do it to make sure that everything flows through. Okay. But most people are not going to do that extra work. So it doesn't matter.
They're not.
No. And so they're winging it. And then you have the second part. If the person doesn't qualify, let's say it's credit score wise, then it goes to that same dealership kick out mode. It's like, you didn't get the pre-approval? Yeah, they said my score wasn't high enough. Oh, okay. Well, call me when you're ready. And then on to the next person. Yeah. See, so everyone's fishing in the same pond. Everyone wants the 700s. Everyone wants the 600s. See, those are going to come. They're going to come. That's a natural thing. They know that they qualify. They're going to start that process. The money is where the people that don't qualify, not the money to the point where it's like just business wise, but that's what the opportunity is. And so most people don't want to work that hard. I mean, everyone wants the layup. So,
yeah, it's sad, but
yeah.
That's society.
A lot of people do it. People get mad at the results they don't have from the work that they didn't put in. So I'm gonna drop them today.
Wait, say that again.
I said people get mad at the results that they don't have from the work that they didn't put in. Yep.
That gotta be like a Bible verse or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Saying like what? That's crazy. But no, that's true. People feel entitled to a lot of stuff, and you ain't do shit.
You're right. Exactly. 1,000%. So, but to give the super short version, and I'm gonna shorten these up a bit, but and the reason why I'm kind of extending these answers out, because I want people to understand the mindset of it all, right? But at the same time, no, all you need to have is a 580 middle credit score. You guys go to myfico.com, see what that looks like. If you're not there, then there's plenty of resources that's out there. Then now I will say this, just because 580 is the entry, that just gets your foot in the door. If you're between 580 and 620, you can get a house, but it's gonna be a little bit of a red tape. They're gonna need proof of a lot more questions. Underwriting is not gonna be your best friend, that type of stuff. Now, if you're 620, you automatically get what they call the market rate. Okay. So this is how buying a home is different from buying a car. If you are 620 and you want to go get a car, you're more than likely going to have a double-digit interest rate. Okay. Just because a car is it's a short-term commitment. People jump out of cars all the time. People get into accidents. Cars are, we know how the cars are. So you would need the better interest rates with a car is usually 680 and higher, 720 and higher. When you're buying a house, you could be between 620 and 850. The rate's going to be the exact same. See?
Really?
At 1,000%. 1,000%. Now, that's only if you have an FHA loan. Okay. Because again, that's the regulation. Okay. It's like, hey, this is the market rate. You can get that if you're between 620 to 850. You're going to get whatever the best rate is at the time that we lock your rate in. Rates change technically every day, really every hour, but they display them. It's too much to keep people updated every hour, so it's just a daily rate, and essentially that's how that part would go. But 620 and higher, that's where you want to be. Now, if you guys want down payment assistance, not saying you need it, but down payment assistance is available. State money. Who don't want money from the state? Just for getting home ownership, you can get it easily. $7,500 is the easiest one to get if you're 640 or higher. And but there's a lot of so many other down payment assistance programs out there, but you got to qualify, of course. And but I would say 620 and above, you'll be good to go. Now, you do have the conventional loan. I don't want to confuse or give too much on it just because I want people to be confused. But with conventional, some people may have to go conventional simply because of the property. Sometimes, like certain properties only want conventional. So like,
in my home, I closed on last year. Yeah. I tried to do FHA. They say I have to go conventional.
Yeah. And so it's an easier loan it's an easier closing loan. Okay. But it's a little bit harder to qualify for. That means Brianna got her stuff together, guys. So just see on that. But either way,
got that good credit.
so you have that, but then on the conventional side too, sometimes people have to go conventional because of their DTI. So sometimes it's because of student loans, sometimes it's because of their income.
And most of the time, for the audience?
DTI. So debt to income. So with debt to income, short version is because the percentages are going to change all the time, so it doesn't make sense for me to go too deep into the percentages. But as far as DTI, it's going to be your debt to income ratio. And essentially, I would say the easiest way to look at this, guys, is making sure that your debts are as low as possible. And so debts are not total balance. Debts are really monthly payment commitments. Okay. Yeah. So like, for example, you may have a car note, which is normal. That's natural. We expect you to have a car note, right? But when you start getting into like personal loans, stuff like that, there's nothing wrong with having a personal loan. You still can close on a house. But if your income, if that monthly payment starts like the percentage starts getting close to the percentage of the income that the bank has for your DTI ratio, then it gets to a point where it's like, hey, we may need you to pay this loan off. We may need you to bring your credit cards down because those monthly payments are now challenging, right? So now, don't get me wrong, this goes also, income can fix that too. But that's the thing, is it easier to tell someone, hey, make more money? Or is it easier to tell someone, hey, pay this off or pay this down? right? And so people can usually pay stuff down because they're making payments on it anyway, right? But to go say, hey, go make more money, that's almost rude. So but that's essentially how that process goes. But yeah, 620 is all you need, unless you have like a high student loan balance. Let's talk about student loans just for a hot second.
Yes, please.
So here's the thing with student loans. One, don't wait on Biden. No, I'm kidding. But
nah, you're right. I've been waiting on him.
So here's I'm not going to go into the logic behind whether student loans should be forgiven or not. That's a whole nother conversation. The thing is that it's really not the student loans themselves. It's really the fact that we're allowing these schools to charge so much.
Yeah, facts.
We are saying, hey, go to EIU, go to NIU, when you can get, but I need these companies to honor my degree if I get it from a city college, right? Because that's really why we go to the bigger schools, is so we look better on paper, right? But now it's starting to feel more like a receipt than a degree. In a sense. And so it's like, well, man, I was promised this American dream, but then at the same time, let's be honest, things are shifting, right? There's no class. You could become a successful podcaster like Brianna, right? However, there's no class necessarily in college on that, right? No. Even if it was, would we really pay for that, right? No. Google has come out with certifications. Facebook has come out with certifications. I'm not knocking school. Listen, I want people to understand we do need our doctors, our lawyers, our teachers.
Yes.
People do need these certifications. All I'm saying is if you guys do not need to go to school or your profession doesn't require you to go to school, let's not waste that money. Let's not waste that time. Okay? Because there's a game kind of being played. And I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists like, oh man, they're doing it. I'm not a blamer. But I will say this. There's only one place in the world where you can, I'll give you an example. When you go into, let's say you have a business idea, right? And you can go to a bank and say, this is my business plan. This is everything I got. This is going to change the world. Bank says, sounds good. Well, let me see your credit. Let me see your reserves. Do you have a potential cosigner? The bank is going to say, hey, let's do all these steps before we give you this money, fam. We don't know you like that.
Yeah.
You go get a car. They say the car's $20,000 and you qualify not to put any money down, all the rest of this jazz. They give you a loan for the car. You have a nice day. You go buy a house. They give you a loan for the house. You have a nice day. You go to school. They give you so much money that you get a refund check. Now, hey, let's talk about that. So let's talk about that.
Be nice in college.
Let's talk about that.
It comes back to bite you.
Why does a person, first off, how does a person have a refund from money that they never had in the first? There's no refund, sir. I didn't give you $10 for a $9 item to get $1 back, right? That's money back to me. That's change. But when you're talking about, for example, like a refund check, why am I getting a refund? And then as college students, we tell ourselves, oh, well, this is my money. I need this. First off, there are some people who most definitely made some smart decisions with refund checks.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the difference. Unless you gave that money back, which most people didn't, unless you gave that money back, because no one ever thought about that. No one told us that. No one's the letter. It was really no letter. It just said, here's a check with your name on it. Yeah. People that's from the city of Chicago, that are from wherever you live, really, and some people come from struggling homes. Yeah. They get that $5,000 check. I've heard stories about them going back to Chicago and saying, hey, listen, mom, I know we need to take care of this. We need to take care of this. Yeah. Or mom, I need a new laptop. Oh, baby, that's your money. That's your refund check.
Yeah.
Let's do the math real quick. Brianna, what would you say is the average refund check per semester? Just a guess.
Per semester?
You know what you was getting.
Yeah, I was getting like $4,000.
Perfect. Let's just say $3,000. Yeah. If the average refund check is $3,000 and a person goes to school, let's say that they start on time, they finish on time, right? 4 years. 4 years, that's 8 semesters. Watch where I'm going. 3,000 times 8 is 24,000 in refund checks, right? So now that means if the average person has $50,000 worth of student loan debt, that means half the money that we are in debt, we could have given back, which means, I'm not gonna put all the blame on us. We should have never gotten it as a refund. Why are we getting, this is not, and I'm not knocking any government programs. This isn't like Section 8 or Link or something like that, where it's like, hey, you qualify for XYZ. Everybody got refund checks. Here. You are an 18-year-old, 18, 19, 20, 21. You don't have the most financial knowledge.
Nope.
But let's talk about how you can get that. You don't need a cosigner. You don't need a job. You are a jobless college student, right? And there's a refund. That's where it's not a scam. It's not a scam. I will say it's not a scam is when you're doing something and you don't really, like, someone told you something and it ended up being something else. This is stuff that we have the documents. We just ain't nobody reading that. It's like, listen, I get all this. Where's my check? Right? Yeah. My friend down the hall got their check. Where's mine's at? Right? Yeah. And so that's essentially how that went. I'm sorry, Brianna, I got off topic.
Nah, you preaching. And like you said, I mean, we was already struggling. The parents could barely send us money to buy food, so we were like, I need this.
Correct.
You know, so they take advantage of our weakness.
Yeah.
You know, and they were not educated. You know,
no, 1,000%.
You know, and it's where we come from, and it's you know,
yeah. And I tell people that, and it's like, man, Calvin, I never thought of like that perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, now you got me thinking about how this.
Yeah, man.
All the refund checks I was enjoying. Well, it was bad.
Yeah. I remember, and I won't put my family members' names out there, but I remember being at this, it was a family gathering, and I was talking to two of my cousins. One of my older cousins was pretty much almost done with college, and the other one was kind of just getting into college. Like, he was pretty much wrapping up his first semester. And he was like, man, cuz, listen, I got a couple questions, man. I just got this refund check. I need a new laptop. I said, listen, if you need the laptop, get the laptop, but give the rest of the money back. But my other cousins came into the room and was like, give the money back. Man, that's his money. It's not his money. He's like, Calvin, listen, do we go to school? We get the money. We get the refund check. That's our money. Okay. In about 5 years, you'll find out whose money that really is. Right. Yeah. And then you're not in a position to pay it back. Right. So think about it. Yeah, $50,000. Guys, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee originally. You could buy a decent house, like, well, at the time, you know, for $50,000, or at least you could buy a house and kind of fix it up. This is $50,000. A $50,000 car is nice. Right. Yeah. Here's the worst. This is the next thing about a student loan is that, again, I'm not knocking student loans. It's just we got to know what we're getting into. Right. And we just have to have a plan. All it is just a plan and a strategy. Yeah. We have that in place. And then it's like, OK, let's go ahead and put ourselves in a better position. But either way, I don't want to spend too much time on student loans. But essentially, that's but having a certain amount of student loans. Let me go back to the point I was trying to make was that whatever your student loan balance is, you need to be making that per year. If your student loan balance is at least $50,000, you should be making $50,000 a year. If your student loan balance is $100,000, you should be making $100,000 a year. Really? And so that has nothing. And don't get me wrong, I get it. The job market is what it is. But I'm saying that to say, if you don't make that amount of money, for example, average income for if you're about 30 to like maybe about 25 to about 35, average income is about 45,000, right? 40 to 45,000. So, if you're making that, and there's nothing wrong with that amount, but the problem is that some of these people have $50,000 worth of student loans, $80,000 worth of student. Yeah, that goes into conventional. Now your money is the percentage is not kind of working out. They've had to change the home buying requirements just because the student loan balances are so high and people's incomes is not right where it needs to be. So the person that didn't go to school has an easier chance at buying a house than the person that went to college. And all they did what their parents told them to do. They did what society told them what was best. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is that it has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, then unfortunately it's going to affect you when you're buying a home.
Yeah, they don't tell you the full story.
No,
that's what I always say.
No,
they tell you part of the story.
They do,
and some of that story may be facts.
Yeah,
it's facts.
Yeah,
well, they don't tell you the hidden messages or the consequences. They don't.
Correct.
Because you being in debt forever, paying student loans, helps their system go around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's money.
It's money.
And that's how we end up where we are now. But it is what it is. And there are ways around it. I don't want people to feel like, oh my God, I got this amount of student loan debt, I can't buy a house. You most definitely can. There's programs that's out there. I always make the joke, whoever you sleep with, maybe your cosigner. So I thought it'd be funnier than that. But anyway, all right. So, but I say that to say because sometimes if you have a certain amount of student loan balance, you may need a cosigner. So
okay, and that was actually going to be like my next question.
Yeah.
Like, how do student loans affect a person buying a house?
Yeah. So short version is when you like I said, if you want to have your income close to the total balance that's student loans that you have. If you don't, be prepared to have a cosigner. That's really what that part is. A cosigner also too. My lenders, they just approved. They just essentially have it where now you can have 3 people on an application. So that's huge because I recently closed a deal with a husband and wife, and they needed like just a tad bit more income for the house that they wanted to have, and they added their mom to the deal. And usually you don't hear about that. Like 3 individuals, 3 socials, 3 incomes on one particular application to buy a house. It took them from the 200 range to like over 400,000. They got the house that they wanted.
Jesus, nice. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. And here's another thing too, guys. Just because someone's co-signed, you can always refinance, which means that at some point they would have to qualify income wise to handle that mortgage payment, and then they can just scoop mom off the off the loan.
Kick mom off.
Right. Yeah.
So going back. I saw you make a video about this.
Yeah.
What's the difference between pre-approval and a pre-qualification?
Very good question. So a pre-qualification. So let's start with a pre-approval because that's more common. A pre-approval is more like, hey, this is what you're pre-approved for. Let's say it's for $300,000, and it says, hey, you're pre-approved for $300,000 as long as what you put in the application can be verified. We won't start the verification process until you get under contract, because that takes, we have to pay man hours for that, right? Underwriting, and they have to kind of dig through stuff and make sure everything is accurate and stuff like that. So it's easier for us to just give you a pre-approval. You go ahead and do your thing. Here's the problem. People assume that people do their job. Right. So just like Brianna, have you ever worked at a job before and there were lazy people at your job? Have you ever worked at a job before where people was just giving wrong information? It's the same thing in the lending in real estate. Unfortunately, some of these lenders, they'll look at the check stub. People do provide fake check stubs, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then since they think they've rented an apartment, crazy. And so then the lender being lazy, they won't check. And not every lender is like this. I don't want people to feel like, I'm not like that. Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the friend. Y'all know who I'm talking about. So they won't check the stuff. So underwriting gets paid to find not necessarily errors. They get paid to make sure stuff is accurate. So underwriting gets involved when you are essentially like either under contract and you're like kind of week 3, week 4. That's really when they get involved. So that's where a pre-qualification comes in. So a pre-qualification is essentially an approval. It's where, hey, you've already gone through underwriting. We've confirmed your income. We confirmed your debts. We know everything we need to know. And here's the best thing about that. The only reason why people don't get a pre-qualification versus a pre-approval simply because they don't know that they can. Number one. Number two, they don't ask. And so now my team, we start the pre-qualification right off the top. But just to keep things simple, normal, natural, I just say, hey, here's your pre-approval. But week 1, they fill out the application. So let's say day 1, they fill out the application. They send the normal stuff for a pre-approval. The lender does the regular thing, and she says, hey, here's your pre-approval. But while they're out looking for homes, my team, they're still in the back verifying everything, right? That way they're doing what most lenders do. And this is like 70% of lenders do this. 70% of lenders, they wait until you go around looking for houses, get under contract, and then give earnest money, do your inspection, go back and forth on inspection, and then you order the appraisal. That's like week 3, week 4. Now underwriting gets involved. 70% of lenders do that. Yeah. But not most lenders. I'm like, dude, it's dead time. Let's go ahead and start working on this. Though I only work with lenders that want it as bad as I do. So while I'm showing houses, they're back in the back end making sure that everything's good. Here's the next reason why you want a pre-qualification, or essentially you just want to get the overall approval. It shortens your closing time, because remember, a good 10 to 14 days is underwriting alone. So if underwriting can knock that out early, now you can close in 30 days, right? Or less. So, if they have title done, man, sometimes we've gotten deals done in like 22 days just from someone who's already pre-qualified. I don't promote that much just because there's a lot of things that have to be in place. And sometimes you may need to explain this. They may take a couple days. It just depends on documents and stuff like that. But that's essentially the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. Pre-approval is like, hey, here you go. We just kind of did a quick verification. We looked at your check stubs. We looked at your bank statements. We looked at your tax returns, and everything looks good. underwriting is really going to dig. Like underwriting verifies. They call your job. They have platforms. There's so many things that mortgage companies have that the consumers doesn't even know. There's a system very popular called Fraud Guard, and Fraud Guard essentially, So for example, people come to the 850 Club and they'll say, hey, I got these student loans. Make them go away on my credit report. I saw some on YouTube. Somebody else did the kind. I know you can do it. Here's the thing. Fraud Guard is going to see that you have student loans because who gave you the student loan? The government. Who's giving you the mortgage loan? The government. They already got access to this stuff. They're 10 steps ahead. So, but people that are just in the credit business, they won't tell you all that because it's going to ruin their business for one. And some people don't know. I'm going to give it that. Some people honestly just don't know. But they look at stuff like that. I'm just going to tell everyone this. Anything that's like you've been taken to court for, or anything that you think you can lie about that that's on your credit report or that didn't used to be there, whatever the case may be, Fraud Guard is going to pick up a lot of that stuff. Because this is a mortgage. I'm not letting you. This is $200,000. Because if we see it now, banks aren't so bad to a point where it's like, hey, we know that you said you was going to pay back this loan for $2,000 and you didn't, and your score dropped a little bit, and we're going to trust you to give you $200,000. Only in America that happens. Okay. Right. So that happens. At the same time, people think that I had this one person, she was trying to get a house. There was nothing on her credit report. And I said, bad credit is better than no credit, because bad credit shows that you at least qualified at some point in time. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you got into a position where things happen. Let's just start there. Yeah. But people think these banks are just difficult to work with. And it's honestly not. They make more money. Would you rather, if you're in a relationship and you really like this person, would you rather be in a 4 to 5 year relationship, or would you rather be in a 30-year relationship? 30 years, right? That's a mortgage. Right? This isn't a car. A car is that 4 or 5 year relationship. That's why those are easy throwaways. But see, a 30-year commitment, we got to dig deep, because this is how most of the banks are making money from the long-term loans. Okay. So if the mortgage industry does bad, that's why a lot of banks end up not doing well, because they're hoping people pay their mortgages. But if you invest in businesses and like Silicon Valley and things of that sort, things are going to shift. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying it's bad investments, but I mean, they've been successful for quite some time, and things just happen. Things are shifting, right? Yeah. And so you got to keep up with the times, So, but either way, that's the difference. Well, those are the differences between the pre-approval and the pre-qualification.
So quick question. That Fraud Guard.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So a credit repair company takes off, they take off bankruptcies and stuff, and it helps your credit report. Yeah. And your credit score essentially takes off late payment. Fraud Guard picks up on that too?
Not the payments, but the bankruptcy.
But the bankruptcy.
Yeah, anything that's like court related, government related, those are usually things like child support. But mainly, but then again, every state kind of does child support a little bit different. Some keep it on a really local level. Some keep it on a state level. Some, so it just really depends. That was a big deal about 5 years ago. Some states report on time or just payment history in general for child support, which I think is pretty good, especially if someone wants to build their credit. Yeah. So, but then people started going back and forth about that. So now a lot of states don't do it anymore. But yeah, at minimum, bankruptcies, student loans, stuff that's either court related usually, or things that are government related, is going to find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earnest money earlier. Can you talk about what that is for those who don't know? And also, why is it, I heard sometimes it's better to put more down than what they ask?
It depends on the market.
Especially when it's multiple offers.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I've lost a couple offers simply because a person said they was going to get $5,000 in earnest money. And and here in 2020, we learned a lot. In 2020, the market was extremely aggressive, and interest rates were low, inventory was low, and you had nothing, and people had money that they couldn't go to the club, they couldn't fly out to Jamaica. So it was like, all right, I guess I'll buy a house. I'm tired of buying stuff on Amazon. I'm tired of standing in line at Gucci. Let me go ahead and buy a house, right? So, but essentially, what was the question?
So, what is earnest money for someone?
Yeah, okay.
Why is it better to put it down more?
Got you. So with earnest money, you need to put down 1% of what the purchase price is. So for example, if the purchase price $300,000, at minimum, the seller's going to be looking for you to come to the table with about $3,000. Okay. However, like you mentioned, if it's in a hot area, or here, I like to tell people this: if the house has been on the market for less than like 10 days, you may want to consider giving a little bit more earnest money. Earnest money, guys, is essentially the engagement ring. It's essentially saying, hey, seller, I promise to do everything I need to do in order to close on this house. Okay. And if I don't, you are essentially, you can keep this money if it's not finance based, or we can't come to an agreement, or if the house doesn't appraise, or if we can agree to the inspection. There are ways to to wiggle yourself out of it. But essentially, that it's just it's money. It's essentially the engagement where you're saying, I promise to do this, and it goes towards your closing costs. So it's not like it's an additional cost. It's some money now. I've seen some aggressive sellers say, hey, I know you got to bring about $15,000 in closing. We want $10,000 now, and we want about $3,000 on week 4. So people get real savvy, so, and it's not that crazy now. Now it's like the flip side where sellers are almost like, please buy my house. Not every area is like that. Some areas still hot right now. But now it's kind of a weird time because rates are higher than what they normally, I would say normally are, because the rates were higher like 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, interest rates were like 11%, 13, 14%. We're crying about 7% only because we know it just used to be 2.75.
Yeah.
And so, but if you ask your grandparents what they paid, you wouldn't believe it. So, and that's just what that is. Before FHA even came out, you used to have to put down 50%. Back like 1940s, 1950s, you used to put down 50% of the house.
50.
That's why a lot of people were not in home ownership, which is why it was one of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King fought for, not just for the African American community, but it was more so like, hey, people are hardworking people. They just don't have that amount of money to put down. But now with earnest money, it just makes it obviously a lot easier. But yeah, if you can give them more, most definitely do it. But again, it's not necessarily needed. I would only do that for houses that are fresh on the market or less than 10 days on the market. If some stuff that's been sitting for like more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, stuff like that, you don't have to do all that.
No,
the 1% of the purchase price would be just fine. Like most sellers don't even care really because again, that's their money. So it's they know it's your money. It goes to your closing costs. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can we talk about like how someone can get assistance?
Yeah.
With down payment on a home? Because with me, when I was closing, they said I had like so many credits. Like I had like a few thousand credits. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like I didn't apply for any programs.
Yeah.
Is that like the assistance?
So check this out. What I'm thinking what it sounds like your agent did for you is got you seller closing cost assistance. So we'll kind of go into how to reduce the amount of money that you need to go into home ownership. Okay. So number one, the most popular is going to be down payment assistance. There's 3 types of down payment assistance. One is called lender-based down payment assistance. That means that you get it from the actual lender that you're with. The second is called state-based down payment assistance. That's essentially where you get money from the state. There's a lot of different programs that's out there. The most popular is called IDA, IDHA. That's the one I was talking about where you get $7,500 for just having a 640 score. You still got to meet the DTI requirements as well too, the debt to income requirements. The lender will take care of all that. They'll let you know. And then you have what they call area-based down payment assistance. That's where if you buy a house in a certain area, or some area-based down payment assistance programs have it structured to where it's certain addresses, which is so weird. And if you see a house and that address is on their list, then of course they'll give you an additional amount. There's also another one, MMRP. That one is available as well too. That's like up to $10,000. That's more of an area-based down payment assistance program. There's a lot of stuff that's out there, but I will say this: once your income gets to a certain point, you're not going to meet the qualification, just because you have to it's only a certain amount of area median income that you can be at. So guys, if you're over 75,000, chances are you probably won't qualify for a lot of stuff out there. There is some stuff, but then even if you get it, don't forget, some stuff is, hey, here's the money, you're good to go. But a lot of stuff you have to pay back. So they'll make the money on the interest rate, or they'll lower your purchase price, or they'll change the amount of money you have to have at closing, or there's restrictions like you can't sell the house within a certain period of time. You have to live in the house for a certain period of time. So you have those types of things. So just ask a lender or a great real estate agent like myself, and we most definitely get that answer for you. So then you have tax credits. Tax credits really help if you're like looking at homes like in the suburbs or like in high profile areas, Beverly, up north, West Loop, stuff like that. Yeah. Where taxes are, because see, normal city of Chicago taxes, like in the West Side, South Side, those are like, anywhere between $1,000 to about maybe $3,000, $3,500. But once you start going into like near Wrigleyville, like where we are now or so, or somewhere else, taxes are a little bit higher. Yeah. So the tax credit, which is the amount you're going to get from the seller, sometimes would help out just because you're in a $8,000 tax area or $5,000 tax area. That helps a little bit. But what is going to help out big time that you don't have to qualify for at all, any house can work on this, is seller closing cost assistance. So here's the thing.
I did that. I asked a seller for
That's what you have.
1,000 back.
Yeah, so it's very smart. So here's the thing. I always tell people this. So when you're buying a house, for every $5,000, right now with the interest rates, for every $5,000 that you are borrowing, you're probably paying about $40 to $50 a month. That's the difference. Okay. So the question is, Brianna, if a person, if a seller says, "Hey, Brianna, I'm gonna give you I got $10,000. I'm okay with losing. Are you okay with me losing this on the price so you can go back to your friends and high five and say, man, I bought this $300,000 house for $290,000, right? Or would you rather me give you this $10,000 in closing cost credits and that's $10,000 less cash you would have to bring to closing? Which one sounds better to you, right? And so the best one is going to be seller closing cost assistance, in my opinion, because that's less liquid cash you have to bring to closing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so that's what's really going to help a lot of people, and especially right now. So I'll give you guys an example. So if a seller just dropped their price, let's say $10,000, right? You can take that price back up 10,000, and then you already know the seller's going to give you, because they just said they're okay with losing 10 grand. They didn't call you and tell you, they didn't text you, they didn't tell your agent. The price change showed you. So they dropped the price $10,000. You can take that price back up to 10,000 and then ask the seller for a $10,000 credit. The seller is going to, the math is the exact same as them leaving it at that price. And so if, for example, if there's a $300,000 house and the seller just dropped the price to $290,000, you can go back to that seller, and your agent would take that price up to $300,000 and then take that as a $10,000 seller closing cost credit. The seller's going to say yes because they just dropped the price $10,000. It's the same math for them. The net amount of money that they just lost is the exact same. But who wins in that scenario? You do, because see, you can get a $290,000 house for $300,000 and say, oh man, I got equity. Well, that's great, but let's try to save as much money as we can. Now, don't get me wrong. When you change your price point, obviously, that's going to you're kind of financing your down payment in a sense. But I mean, again, are you okay with your payment going up maybe $100, maybe $50, depending on how much money you want to get? Or you could just leave it at that same price and ask the seller, hey, it's really more of a mental thing. See, because if you don't know that the seller's okay with doing that, then you won't know until you ask. But I tell people, I try to set my clients up all the time to get the most seller closing cost assistance we can, especially in the market right now. This is the time to do it. In 2020, they was not going to respond to you. You can kick rocks. You can have a nice day, because people were paying $10,000. I have a client that paid $10,000 cash over the appraised value just to get a house in 2020.
Yeah, that was happening a lot.
That was happening a lot because it was like, what you want to do for this house? Agents were giving a commission. The craziness was happening. But now the market shifted. And now you get some people that, even though the rates are higher than what they were a couple of years ago, that doesn't change some sellers. Some sellers have to sell their home, like for various reasons. And so they don't mind helping out a little bit. So guys, if you guys want to sell a closing cost assistance and you need to change your real estate agent, I might know somebody. So, but no, essentially that's what you want to do is get seller closing cost assistance. Is my recommendation.
Nice. Okay, so next question. How hard is it to qualify for a home as like a Uber or Lyft driver?
Very good question.
Some ways to qualify,
Yeah, so when you are, I would say, when you have side hustles, that's really what it is. Whether it's Uber Eats, DoorDash, doesn't matter what it is. Bigger companies are going to obviously send you a tax document, which means they reported to the IRS that they have paid you out, which is an expense for them. So the IRS is waiting on you to say, hey, this is income for me. And so in order for you to do that, you're essentially considered self-employed. When you're self-employed, you have to show 2 years of, you cannot count self-employment income unless one of two things. Number one, you file taxes on that side hustle income for at least 2 years. The second way you can do it is some lenders will allow you not to give tax returns, but you must show 24 months of bank statements. So at minimum, you must have had that income, that self-employment income, for at least 2 years. Yeah, and if you go to the no tax return route, you have to put down 10%. Which some people don't want to do. So it's like for business owners that are not, telling everything about their taxes essentially. So, but that's really all you can do. Now, here's another thing. So for example, if a person just started doing DoorDash like a month ago, it won't count. You got to have it at least 2 years. But that's essentially how it is. But I know people that's like, that do that stuff full time. And if you do DoorDash during peak seasons, during peak hours and the right areas, you can make $45,000 a year just doing DoorDash. Yeah. So I've seen that type of setup saying that. Yeah. So But again, you cannot count that income unless you've filed taxes on it for 2 years or you're willing to put down 10% and then show 24 months of bank statements. Yeah. No matter how much you've made.
Okay, what do you think about buying a new construction home over a already established home? Because there's a lot of new constructions going up.
Yeah.
But the economy is in a weird spot right now.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You know, it's really no right or
Some
wrong
new constructions
person.
are overpriced from my
Opinion.
philosophy.
Yeah. Real estate is one of those things where we never like the prices. It's one of the few things in America where you're just going to get natural inflation. Just like a Big Mac back in 1970, it was cheaper then. It cost more in 1980. It cost more in 1990. It cost more in 2000. Same thing in real estate. It's going to slowly go up, right? Saying that to say, new construction is cool if you want to be the first owner of a property. That doesn't mean it's going to not have issues. Anytime you're working with humans, you're going to have human error. So sometimes, things get forgotten or somebody, didn't do an inspection right or whatever the case is. New construction is nothing wrong with that. It's going to obviously look great. It's going to keep up with the times. It's modern, things of that sort. But you're going to pay that price point too because you're in that area. Then sometimes too, some areas, some subdivisions don't get enough buyers within a certain time frame to meet a certain tax threshold. So then after a certain period of time, if they can't get enough people in that neighborhood, taxes go up because there's parcels of land that has to get paid for.
Wow.
So you have that potential situation too. But here's one thing. Rehabs are always going to be there because a house, when you think about it, houses last longer than some businesses, so like, especially in Chicago, there's buildings, properties that's been around since the late 1800s. And, there are businesses that are not around, that didn't stand that test of time. But my point in saying that is that a property can get rehabbed all the time. Back in the 70s, shag rug was in, right? Then it was, we can go further than that. Hardwood floors was in. Then they said, no, put carpet down. That carpet's in now. Now it's like hardwood floors are back in. You can, after all those times, it's easier to renovate something. Then it's going to be cheaper, I should say. You can get something that's livable where, the appliances are working, there's running water, the foundation's good, and you just got a couple weekend projects. You watch, HGTV or you watch YouTube, you get inspired, you go ahead and do your own thing. Versus like, new construction, you may not be in a financial position to afford that. So it's really dependent on what you're looking for and what you can afford.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last question
Sure.
for you. Where do you see real estate going in the future? The trend.
Yeah.
Like how is the market going to look in late 2023, 2024?
I'm going to be honest. There are some things that are happening that are beyond the beyond American control. If there's we already saw how America was affected when the war started with Ukraine and Russia, right?
Oh, yeah.
Gas prices changed, wheat changed, all these prices are fluctuating because the partnerships and relationships that America had, that's starting to change now. And it's happening worldwide. And now America has the infrastructure to say, hey, let's work this out. But some countries don't have that infrastructure. It's like, hey, can we do X, Y, Z? No, you can't afford to be with us. So, but we have that infrastructure. So I'm saying that to say it's really up in the air for this year. It's up in the air. But let's go into just history. Historically, interest rates go up, interest rates go down. That's the only thing that's guaranteed. Right now it's at like sixes, is in the 6% range. And, so could it go higher? Potentially. But will it come down? Guaranteed. So for all the people that's, thinking about buying a home this year, interest rates will go down. It's going to happen. Is it going to happen next year? I don't know. Is it going to happen in 5 years? I don't know, but it's going to happen soon. But I would say, within like a 5 to 8 year time span, the market's going to fluctuate regardless of the economy because you have things like COVID that happen. You have things like the war that's happening. You have just this random crazy stuff. And when the world gets nervous, that's when it's like, hold up, let me keep my money in my pocket.
Yeah.
Right.
Facts.
And so when that happens, people start spending less. When people start spending less, banks can't make as much money as they normally do. So they say, let's make these interest rates go up so we can kind of recoup. And so that's essentially how that, fluctuates the market. So, but for now, I would say interest rates will most definitely be going down in like less than 5 years, probably 3 to 5 years. Just depends on how this whole thing works out. You got China getting involved. And the reason why I'm only talking about this is because it affects my industry. And it's so crazy that you would think in today's time that people would just sit down and just pull out a scratch sheet of paper and just say, if we start a war, how will this affect us, economically? Right. So you would think that. So, but, sometimes people get into this, I don't know, just saying, it's just weird because it affects so many people. But at the same time, I would say, in the next 3 to 5 years, interest rates will be going down. Prices are going to slowly keep going up. Prices do go up and down, but you're not going to lose a tremendous amount of equity. From 2020 really gave people an additional, at minimum, most areas saw on average $50,000 worth of equity. Properties in Inglewood, you give me the worst areas in Chicago. They saw, because it's just, if one house sells within a quarter mile, that's more than XYZ, it's going to affect all the properties in the area. That's just normal, natural inflation in real estate. We talked about investments earlier as well too. Real estate is a great thing to invest in, simply because people are going to always need somewhere to stay. No matter what you think about real estate, you either stay with your friends, you stay with your family, you stay by yourself, you got a Cash App relationship. I don't know whatever the situation is, people are they have to stay somewhere. And you say, well, I don't want to buy a house, I want to keep renting. Cool. You have to pay somebody. Yeah. And so that's when you look at it from that perspective, you say, okay, this is a potential, great investment. Not only that, Chicago's one of the few places, now in with this. You look at New York, where you can't buy a property in New York and then get enough rent to even get close to the mortgage you have on that property. Even in the worst neighborhoods of New York. I'll go further on. You can go to California and say, I'm going to buy a house in the worst neighborhood in California. That mortgage payment, that rent, what you can get for the rent in that area, is not going to cover the cost of that. So Chicago's one of the few. This is why that everyone was running to Texas recently. Like, everyone's going to, because it's cheaper, but you get that population. When you get population, you get rising costs, but you get more of the cost of living than you do actual property values. So now that's a very good space. But you can have that in Chicago too. In Chicago, rents have gone up. You can get a 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood for what, like $1,300, $1,400, $1,500, $1,500. You can cover a mortgage with that. Yeah. So a lot of people are still doing house hacking. My wife and I, we bought our first property in 2013. We was 24 years old at the time, and the property was $130,000. The mortgage was, let's just say, keep math easy, it's about $1,000. We charged our tenants $1,000 a month for rent, so we were breaking even. So then we started saving our money. We blew a lot of it, but we ended up saving our money, and then we ended up buying the second property, and then we ended up renting out the second unit. Now that money goes to that property, or vacations, or student loans, or whatever you want to do with. So that's still possible. And again, Chicago is one of the few areas you can do that. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you can't do that in every area. Like up north, the numbers may not work out the same, But again, there are a lot of people. Chicago has some of the most international property owners in the world, because they own the property. They get a property management company. They load it up with Section 8, or they load it up with tenants in general, and then they just collect that money. And then people think like, oh, well, I don't want to be a landlord. These people, they don't like being landlords either. That's why they have property managers. And it's easy, guaranteed money. Guaranteed, because the property managers say, okay, all right, we got to evict them. Okay, that may take a month or so. And they kick them out and get somebody else in. Most people are good people. That's why most people are good people, at least 80%. And so most people are going to pay their rent, whether they're late or not, so, and that's going to happen. But that's essentially where I see where the market is. It's just a matter of where people want to jump in with that.
Well, thank you, Calvin. You dropped a lot of bombs today, a lot of good knowledge. I'm definitely going, we definitely hopefully can collab on some things. Go live on our socials.
Oh, yeah, too easy.
Yeah, and just too easy, and just go over more things.
Sure.
Because we can go for hours.
Oh yeah. I talk about this stuff all the time. So I have appointments after this, and but I talk about this stuff all the time, and it's really just letting people know what their options are and explaining it in a kindergarten level, where it's like, oh man, it does make sense. Like, I got a guy pre-approved a couple days ago, and he's paying rent. And I said, you do know you can, because he was like, man, I think I want to move, want to get another apartment. I said, you can buy a property down the street, and if maybe $150 more per month, and you can own that property. He says, dude, there's no way I can do that. Got him pre-approved. So it's easier than people think. They just have to, here's the thing, guys. You have to tell the right people your goals. That's it.
Yeah, emphasis on the right people. Goals. So where can people find you on social media?
Sure. You can search me on Facebook. That's my favorite platform. I'm there. Just search Calvin Russell. My profile's open. IG, it's so crazy because I just created an Instagram account because I spend most of my time on Facebook and YouTube. So YouTube, we just changed our name. So you guys can find us there at the 80/20 podcast. And so we're there still giving credit information and all sorts of good stuff on there as well too. So 80/20 podcast on YouTube, Calvin Russell on on Facebook. I just created a TikTok, but honestly, guys, it's the same content. It's nothing special. On TikTok and IG, it is going to be a complete copy of what is on my Facebook. So if you guys are not on Facebook and you say, I just want to see what Calvin's posting, you can go over there. It's going to be a straight copy because I'm not managing all this stuff. I post and leave. So, but if you guys want the real deal, I'm on Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah.
for sure. And I'll definitely drop your handles on social when I post the episode and everything in the preview. So thank you for coming. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time, people.